Hey yo, what is going on, viewers of the tube? My name is Tyler and welcome to the channel that brings you the content some consider controversial and the topics no other crypto YouTuber would touch because a so-called army might attack their channel with some thumbs down. Well, just like King Theoden,
Right now! Right! Right for Lumen and the world ending! Yeah!
I will lead the charge. You know the drill. It's time for Chico Crypto. Speaking about controversial, you guys are in for a treat today, and I hope some of the XRP fanboys don't take this to heart and listen to actually what is being said. Yes, if you couldn't tell from the intro, this video is about one of my least favorite cryptos, XRP. So what prompted this video? It wasn't anything XRP or Ripple did, but actually something their closest competitor did that prompted this video. Stellar Lumens, the original XRP fork, decided to burn over 50% of their supply, worth over $4.4 billion. Which gave the coin a much needed pump. One on November 1st, the insider pump before the news dropped, and then finally when the news made its rounds. Although the price has come down a bit since, but comparing it with XRP's chart for the same time period, October 26, both coins' recent lows, to now, Stellar is still up, while XRP's price is actually lower than on the 26th. So today I'm going to make the argument that the XRP community and army should transition over to Stellar Lumens. I know with the reduction in supply, many of you are thinking about it, and doesn't the Lumen Army sound oh so good? So let us begin with the arguments, and number one is obvious: coin supply, circulating and total. As of right now, there are nearly 100 billion XRP, with over 43 billion circulating in the wild. With the coin burn, there are only a total of 50 billion lumens, with just over 20 billion circulating. More room to grow with the Lumen token versus XRP? If they are both going to be cross-border payment disruptors, then yes. Now this next argument goes to loyalty, because as an army member, you need to be loyal to your project and founder, who was one of the founding members of Ripple and was the brains that came up with the idea. Well, none other than Stellar founder and chief architect Jed McCaleb. All the way back in May of 2011, Jed posted this on Bitcoin Talk regarding a new proposal for Bitcoin without mining, to take away mining and make the issue of trust explicit. When you run a node, you choose which other nodes to trust. This new ledger would basically be like the current Bitcoin blockchain, but it would have a list of what nodes believe the current ledger to be valid. This was the first time the Ripple's ledger was thought of, and there is no argument it came from Jed. As we can see, Vazenjay bumped it in 2014, saying this was probably the starting point for Jed's projects, Ripple and now Stellar. And Joel Katz, aka David Schwartz, Ripple's CTO and original architect who worked with Jed in the early days on the ledger, says yes, this is a valuable piece of history now, on the same thread, but only 5 years later in 2019. So Jed is the original OG, and the XRP ledger was his idea. Does this past confirms this even more on Twitter in February of this year. He asks, Jed McCaleb writes that he started working on Ripple in 2011 and employed Arthur and yourself along with Chris Larsen in 2012. Is this true? David responds, yes, Jed had the original idea to use a distributed agreement algorithm instead of proof of work to solve the double spend problem in a distributed ledger. He hired me in late 2011 to see if this was possible, and if so, if it was good for anything. Now, I have an article if you want to read it. It's in the description about Jed's exit from Ripple. The reason for Jed getting forced out comes down to a love he fell for. It was a personal dislike for Jed's girlfriend from Chris Larsen, from The Observer, who covered the story. Chris sat her down and was like, Joyce, you're the CEO. It's going to be hard fitting in. You're obviously reporting to me. Two cultures coming together is always a hard thing. Let's talk about everything before we do it, just to make sure everything is good. And Joyce, just of course, wouldn't hear of it. This all eventually culminated in a showdown meeting where Jed says it's either I go or Chris goes, and a boardroom vote happened. They voted 5-1 to keep Mr. Larsen, only Jed voting for himself. Original Ripple board member Jesse Powell, CEO of Kraken now, detailed why he sided against him. The Stripe deal sucks. Employees don't trust you as a leader manager. You're hiring your girlfriend indicates you have poor judgment. McCaleb responded with an email shared to the Observer, explaining the Stripe deal was better than the group thought and apologizing for not being a more effective manager. And for Mrs. Kim, the fact that she is my girlfriend didn't impact her or my work at all. Yes, Ripple had a deal with Stripe way back, but lost it because of Jed's exit. And Stellar now has the deal with Stripe, and they were the first organization to back the Stellar project. Was this all really needed, and did a dislike for someone's girlfriend set the XRP project back? Well, we all know about the controversy with Jed's founder's holdings of 9 billion XRP, providing constant sell pressure from an extremely disgruntled person, the Idea Man, who now has a personal vendetta to take back what is his. I mean, just in September, Ripple moved over 100 million XRP, worth 26.3 million. And just after this, Jed started ramping up selling because per his agreement, he can now sell 750 million XRP per year. Tokens, not total. Starting in August, he started selling nearly 500,000 XRP per day, and at one point over 752K per day. Stellar does not have this problem. And you would think Jed's exit would only be confined to him. Well, actually, Jesse Powell was a good friend of Jed's, and after his exit in May of 2014, he resigned as XRP board member, stating he thinks the protocol holds promise and is why he was a first investor. Sadly, the vision Jed and I had for the project in its early days had been lost. His reason? The founder's XRP allocation of 20%, which he hoped would be returned, which Jed agreed to, and Chris Larson declined. This was revisited after, and Jed was open, and Chris was hostile. Jed wanted to reduce or destroy the founder's holdings, as did Jesse. The greedy others did not.
It's time for the grand unveiling of money!
So, Jed forked Ripple in 2014 and launched Stellar in July of 2014. And within 5 months, they had to fork Stellar because of problems with the consensus. A blog post outlining the fork was posted by Stellar, included in the description, which then Ripple quickly responded to, saying it does not affect them. With Jed, according to this CoinDesk article, reiterating the Ripple consensus protocol is to blame, due to a flaw by which nodes verify transactions based on data from smaller pools of nodes than originally intended, which led to the creation of the Stellar consensus protocol, a federated Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus, written by Professor David Maziris, head of Stanford's Secure Computing Group, now part of the Stellar Foundation. He was the one that reviewed the consensus systems of Ripple and Stellar and reached the conclusion the existing algorithm was unlikely to be safe under all circumstances, as seen from issue 2, Provable Correctness, from Stellar's blog post. I'm not going to argue anything further about this, but it's interesting. Stellar ran into problems with the consensus and Ripple didn't. Ripple said it was due to Stellar's modifications, but wouldn't it just be easier for Stellar to go back into Ripple's open source code and copy exactly what they had to get it functioning again? Unless there was actually a problem. How about the future? Because both projects are aiming to transform cross-border payments. There are many articles and research from the XRP Army floating around about new partnerships with bank after bank, but that is from your own community sources. So let's hear what John Wolpert has to say, founder of Hyperledger, IBM Blockchain, now is the executive director of Web3 Studios and Consensus, as he works with all the major enterprise blockchains and products being built. Here's the thing, if you're worried about future-proofing your efforts, then the thing to watch isn't how Ethereum, Fabric, and Corda work today. It's about the trajectory of their respective roadmaps. Where's the gravity of the community taking things? You can build more or less the same stuff today with IBM Blockchain as you can with Kaleido or Microsoft's suite of blockchain services. While Fabric did surprise me recently with a project called WorldWire that can, in a very limited way, send Stellar instructions to run cross-border payments. Well played, Jesse Lund. And here's the thing, the old XRP Army from before many of you thought Ripple was the one going to have the partnerships with IBM. Them trying to pick up on breadcrumbs. Well, viewers, there was a wave of support beginning in August to stop the Ripple company from what they were doing, like the dumping of tokens. A petition was even made, which garnered 3,799 signatures, and it was started by Crypto Bitlord, a previously vocal supporter of XRP and the Army. Eventually, he called for a fork. Well, my friend, there is already a fork. Join the most stellar army around, the Lumen Army. And I have to thank Weiss Ratings for the tweet that gave me the idea for this video. Cheers. I'll see you next time.